This, like all of my fanfiction what-ifs, is one that I've been really excited to tell, especially since it's focused mainly on Ahsoka Tano, who's one of, if not my favorite, Star Wars character. And this is the first story that I get to tell that features Luke and Leia. Now, I had to wait until season 7 of the Clone Wars concluded so that I can properly tell this story. I researched the Ahsoka novel to get a good understanding of what she was doing after Order 66. Though some of the novel is slowly getting retconned, I want to respect what's been established, while tweaking it just a little bit due to the circumstances of this what-if timeline. So, with that being said, let's enter an alternate universe of the Star Wars timeline, an Elseworlds, on what if Ahsoka Tano raised Luke and Leia. If Ahsoka raised the Skywalker twins, this would drastically change the Star Wars timeline, all the way through the original trilogy and possibly the sequels. For this what-if story, we're going to journey through the Star Wars Elseworlds timeline and dive deep into detail on what would change, at least what I think would change, and how it would change, regarding Ahsoka, the twins, and the wider galaxy around them. With the conclusion of the Clone Wars, I thought it'd be fitting for this tale to start where Ahsoka's journey concluded. So, our story begins here. This is the moment everything changes for Ahsoka moving forward, the moment she lets go of the last thing tied to her Jedi past, an identity, because as we already know, she is no longer a Jedi. She understands that the Jedi Order has fallen. With that, she drops the last thing connected to her previous life as a Jedi. Ahsoka takes one last glimpse at the graves of her men. She turns around and makes her way to the Y-Wing. She climbs the ship with Rex, and the two leave the planet. Since we don't know exactly when the Venator stopped during the hyperspace travel to Coruscant, I'm going to take some creative liberties for this Elseworlds timeline. In this alternate reality, Ahsoka decides to stay away from the core worlds, such as Coruscant, due to Order 66. At least for now. She goes into hiding on an unspecified backwater world, in the Outer Rim region later on. Ahsoka and Rex fly to a planet named Brental. This is where she gets a ship to journey on her own. Before Rex leaves for Selos, the planet where we met him in Rebels, the two wish each other well.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
They then split up and go their own separate ways. Ahsoka ventures to the world of Thebeska, the Outer Rim planet that she settled on in the Ahsoka novel. Since we don't know where this planet is on the map, we'll say it's on the Hydian Way, which is close to Polis Massa. This will play into our story very soon. After Ahsoka settles down in a remote area, she takes time to relax, and meditates in a cave she stumbled upon. She sits in front of a fireplace. Ahsoka's whole world just got flipped upside down. Her own men turned on her. Rex almost killed her, and there's a good chance that Anakin is gone, from her understanding. You can imagine how heartbroken Ahsoka must be feeling right now. She's essentially lost almost everything important in her life. The young Togruta closes her eyes, reaching out with the Force as she tries to sense Anakin. While this is happening, we cut to Polis Massa during this exact moment. In Revenge of the Sith, there was a deleted scene where Yoda communed with Qui Gon on becoming a Force ghost. Yoda had followed the spirit of Qui Gon Jinn through many trials, working with the sacred Force priestesses in order to become worthy of learning the secret to eternal consciousness. Yoda sits in the quiet chamber room of the Polis Massa asteroid installation. He allows himself to meditate deeply on all that had transpired in just a mere number of days. As he goes deep into his trance, he can hear the words of Qui Gon Jinn again, echoing throughout his mind. He knows that this visitation is not the product of his mind going to waste, but the very same Qui-Gon. The conversation is silent, not a word leaving Yoda's mouth as he communed with his old friend through the Force.
Master Yoda, my old friend.
Qui-Gon, good it is to hear your voice again. Upon us, grave times are. Wisdom I require.
I'm relieved to see you are still alive as well, Master.
The boy you found. Gone he is. Failed we have.
Maybe so, but failure is our greatest teacher.
Time to complete my training,
I believe so. It is imperative that Obi-Wan learns the secret as well. But first, you must make contact with Anakin's former apprentice.
Padawan Tano? Alive she is? Make contact, how will I?
Focus deeply, old friend. I can show you where she is. When you find her, bring her here.
Of importance, Padawan Tano is?
All will be clear soon. May the Force be with you, my friend. Farewell.
Qui Gon guides Yoda's consciousness to Ahsoka's as she is meditating. Ahsoka feels a shift, feeling the presence of the Jedi Master who once brought her so much hope and wisdom. Tentatively, she calls out his name.
Master Yoda?
Ahsoka, to hear you alive and well, a relief it is.
Master, we were all deceived. Lied to. What happened to the other Jedi? I can't sense any of them. I can't sense Master Kenobi or Anakin.
Alive, Master Kenobi is.
And Anakin?
The answers you seek, with me they lie. To Polis Massa you must go. Much explaining there is to do.
Polis Massa? The asteroid facility?
Indeed. Eagerly await your arrival, I do. Now hurry you must. Dark times lie ahead.
Okay, Polis Massa. I can be there soon. It shouldn't be too far from where I am.
May the Force be with you.
As Yoda and Ahsoka cut their connection through the Force, Bail Organa walks in to inform Yoda about Obi-Wan's arrival.
Excuse me, Master Yoda. Obi-Wan Kenobi has made contact.
Good to hear, that is. Also, on her way, another friend is. Familiar with Padawan Tano, you are?
Since Ahsoka is in the same sector as Yoda and Obi-Wan, it'll take her a few hours to get there. We don't know the exact passage of time that Padme was on Polis Massa for. It takes about 18 hours max for a woman to give birth. So we'll say this is what happened in Revenge of the Sith during the passage of time, when Padme was giving birth, and when Vader was going through his cybernetic surgery. This gives Ahsoka enough time to arrive before the twins are born, assuming that Thebesca is in the same region as Polis Massa. Thebesca was not far off from the asteroid facility of Polis Massa. As Ahsoka punched the coordinates of the facility into the Navicomputer, her mind swirled with possible answers to all the questions she was ready to ask. It was a silent, intense trip to the asteroid facility. When she arrived, she was greeted by the familiar face of her friend and mentor, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Stepping off of her freighter, she gave the battle-damaged Jedi Master a hug, vocalizing her relief that he was alive. Obi-Wan allowed himself a smile, equally glad to see his young friend was not hurt. The two began to walk towards the medical facility. For a brief moment, Ahsoka believes the medical facility is being used to treat Anakin.
Why are we here? Is Anakin inside?
It's best you see it with your own eyes. What happened on Mandalore is Maul.
He escaped. I let him escape. My own troops turned on me. I managed to bring Rex back to his senses, but the entire ship was destroyed. The clones were controlled by an inhibitor chip. They were created to kill us from the beginning. Darth Sidious is the one who manipulated the entire war. He planned all of this.
Based on the statements that Maul made, and the recordings regarding the chips that Rex recorded, it's safe to assume that Ahsoka pieces this together.
I know. The same happened to all Jedi everywhere. As far as I'm aware, we're all that's left.
I know he's not to be trusted, but Maul told me secrets about the Sith. Concerning things. About Anakin.
What did he tell you?
He told me Sidious was grooming Anakin to become his new apprentice after Dooku. He told me that soon, Anakin would fall to the dark side. When the clones turned on me, just beforehand, I felt something dark. Something I couldn't understand. Is Anakin alive?
At this moment, the two round a corner just outside the medical wing where Padme is lying. Ahsoka recognizes Bail Organa and Master Yoda. She forgets her question for a moment and rushes towards the glass. She is simultaneously confused, disappointed, and saddened at the sight of her longtime friend, Padme Amidala, lying on the table. She could feel something wrong with her. She turns to Master Yoda and Obi-Wan, her face quietly conveying how desperately she wanted answers. It was Obi-Wan who spoke with much sorrow in his voice.
Sidious did indeed take a new apprentice. A new Sith Lord by the name of Darth Vader. Vader took a detachment of the clones to confront the remaining Jedi at the temple. It was there he struck Anakin down.
In Obi-Wan's point of view, when Anakin slaughtered the younglings is when Darth Vader took over completely. Anakin was gone.
No, that can't be true. That's impossible.
Obi-Wan attempted to place a hand on Ahsoka's shoulder in comfort, but the Togruta stepped away from him, placing her hands over her eyes, trying to take the information in. She didn't believe Anakin was dead. How could he be? He was the greatest Jedi the Order had, her teacher, her older brother, the Chosen One. Before she could turn entirely to grief, Ahsoka was interrupted by the medical droid.
Medically, she's completely healthy. For reasons we can't explain, we are losing her.
She's dying.
We don't know why. She has lost the will to live. We need to operate quickly if we are to save the babies.
Babies?
She's carrying twins.
Ahsoka whips her head around, in shock. Things were starting to fall into place. Ahsoka's mind had been racked with questions as to why Padme had been here. Now it was starting to make sense. As she looked at the half-conscious senator, she softly murmured to herself,
Anakin.
The twins were Anakin's, and their father was dead, and their mother soon after. Padme Amidala was happy to see her young friend, Ahsoka, alive and well. As the medical droids induced labor, Ahsoka was there for her the entire time, holding her hand and whispering encouragement as the twins were born. It took many hours, but as the cries of the firstborn child, a boy, filled the room, Ahsoka allowed herself to process the situation. She vaguely heard Padme name him Luke. Not long afterward, the second child was born, a baby girl. Ahsoka weakly smiled at Padme, telling her that the second child was a girl. She took the small child in her arms from the medical droid and held her close to Padme on her opposite side. Padme gets to see both of her children up close, even as her consciousness fades. Looking down at Anakin's daughter in her arms, Ahsoka becomes overwhelmed with emotion. After a few moments, Ahsoka hands the baby back to the medical droid and steps out of the room. In this instance, far away in the core worlds on Coruscant, Darth Vader's helmet slowly descends from the arms of the medical droids over the charred face of Anakin Skywalker. As the mask begins to seal over Anakin's face, he lets out a small, pained sentence, begging for Padme's help. On Polis Massa, as Ahsoka stood outside the medical wing, tears began flowing down her cheeks freely, as her far sight allowed her to feel and hear the words Anakin fearfully said. She couldn't pass it off as anything other than his dying words. It sank in fully. She had failed him. As Ahsoka let out all of her grief, she distracted herself from Padme's situation. Concerned with having failed her men, the galaxy, and Anakin, her sobs of agony distract her from Padme's dying words, which are only heard by Obi-Wan. Inside the medical wing, outside of earshot, Padme let out her dying words as well. She looked painfully at Obi-Wan as she whispered breathlessly that there was still good in her husband.
There's good in him.
She knew there was. Her head fell to the side limply, and Padme Amidala, Queen, Senator, and Mother, passed away. Obi-Wan, grief-stricken, turned his head to the window to meet Master Yoda's sorrowful gaze and catch sight of Ahsoka, crying as she rushed to the window upon feeling Padme's life slowly fade away. They had all failed. The crew compartment on the Tantive IV had been modified into a makeshift nursery for the Skywalker twins. In the darkened room, Luke and Leia Skywalker were sleeping peacefully, though they weren't alone. Standing above them, Ahsoka watched with deep sadness in her heart for the children, barely a few hours old, and yet their parents were both dead. The question settled over the three Force users. What would happen to the twins now? Ahsoka imagined her former teacher's thought process. She realized they would likely want to train them as Jedi. Quietly, she scoffed at the idea. Look what being a Jedi had done for the galaxy, had done for her even. Her thoughts were interrupted when the boy, Luke, began to let out small whines, disturbed as they entered Naboo's atmosphere. He moved his hands around and jostled his sibling, awakening Leia. The two infants were set to start crying at any moment now. Ahsoka's heart sank as she realized the woman they would be calling for was gone now. In that moment, she reached her hands out and gently allowed the siblings to grasp her index fingers. The newborns seemed to enjoy her touch, and rather quickly settled down after receiving some attention. It was here that Ahsoka knew what she had to do.
How about a change of scenery, little ones?
The twins didn't seem to mind. As Yoda, Bail, and Kenobi took a seat to discuss the future of the Skywalker children, Ahsoka entered the room, carrying the two of them in either arm, swaddled with their heads against her chest. When approaching the room, she had heard Master Kenobi and Yoda state,
We must take them somewhere where the Sith will not sense their presence.
Split up, they should be.
Ahsoka walks in the room. She interrupts Master Yoda.
They're coming with me.
Padawan Tano?
They need me. Their parents, they're dead. I can't trust their lives to anyone else. Not even you.
Ahsoka, be reasonable. These children are our only hope.
That's exactly why I can't let you separate them. We all failed Anakin. I refuse to fail his children.
But if the children stay together, it is possible the Sith can find them. They'd be in danger.
Not as much danger as they'd be in with you watching over them.
Anakin was my brother too. I understand how you're feeling, Ahsoka. I only want what's best for them.
With Ahsoka, the children will go.
Ahsoka looked to Yoda surprised.
Communed with Qui Gon Jinn, I did. Instructed to bring Ahsoka here, I was. Believe this to be the will of the Force, I do.
Master Qui Gon? The one who found Anakin?
Indeed. Training he has for Obi-Wan and I.
Qui-Gon? Qui-Gon spoke to you.
Go with Ahsoka, the children must. Until the time is right. Disappear, we will.
I'll take good care of them, Obi-Wan. I promise.
I have no doubt that you will. I only ask that you be safe. Do not hesitate to contact me at the first sign of trouble.
Ahsoka, anticipate Qui-Gon contacting you, I do. Meditate on this, you must.
I will not fail.
Out of sight of Theed's palace guards, Ahsoka carried the children in a makeshift sling. Leia strapped to her back and peering over her shoulder. Luke was strapped to her chest, tiredly cooing and nuzzling against Ahsoka. As she stepped towards the landing ramp to begin her new journey, she turned back to her former teachers. Obi-Wan held his hand outward, and Ahsoka was surprised to see Anakin's lightsaber. Obi-Wan insisted she take it, as she no longer had her own to make use of, seeing as she had left hers behind to fake her demise. Utilizing it would not give her away. Tentatively, she reached out and grasped it, placing it in her travel bag. Giving them a smile, she bowed to them one last time. There was a good chance they would never see one another again. In the darkness of alleyways, Ahsoka watched the funeral march somberly while feeding the twins. It was only right that her twins be here, even if they likely wouldn't recall it in the years to come. Hidden on the Tantive IV, Obi-Wan Kenobi took a different approach. He would follow the training Master Yoda and Qui-Gon had given him, but deep down he wanted to ensure the safety of any remaining Jedi. Bail Organa offered him sanctuary on Alderaan, hidden away in its beautiful mountain ranges. The Senator had promised Kenobi he would inform him of any possible Jedi activity. As the years passed, Obi-Wan vowed quietly to himself that he would do his part against the Empire. General Kenobi wasn't finished just yet. Far away, hidden in the field of wormholes and black holes that made up the Maw, Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine watched the construction of the Death Star. Palpatine watched with glee, Vader with much somberness. Deep down in the pit of his soul, Anakin Skywalker knew that he had failed as well. However, far, far away, Ahsoka Tano had vowed to not fail the children of Anakin Skywalker. In their infancy, Ahsoka would use money provided by Bail Organa to fund baby supplies and shelter. For many months during her travels, hopping planet to planet, she would find herself looking over her shoulder for any sign of danger. She trusted no one. After all, how could she, when she had the fate of the galaxy clinging to her at all times? She would use the name Ashla, like the one in the Ahsoka novel. Luke and Leia had the luxury of keeping their normal names. Many times throughout their travels, Ahsoka found herself reminded of her first grand adventure with Anakin. 4 years ago, she had taken a baby all the way across the stars to save the galaxy. Now here she was again, with 2 babies and the same mission in mind. That being said, Luke and Leia were much easier to deal with than the Hutt had been. As they grew older, Luke and Leia often tried to find ways to make Ahsoka pull her non-existent hair out. Luke was very curious and loved to explore, though often ran back to Mom Ahsoka at the first sign of something unknown. Leia was incredibly talkative. Even as an infant, she could babble for literal hours. It was all very motivational dialogue, and Leia made very good points in her baby speeches. In this timeline, seeing as Ahsoka is busy raising the saviors of the galaxy, she will not be approached by Bail Organa to help create the rebellion, as her callsign Fulcrum a year later. Instead, I believe this task will fall to the Jedi Master hidden on Alderaan. Obi-Wan Kenobi becomes a figurehead for the rebellion, under the alias of Old Ben instead of Fulcrum.
We agree that the time for diplomacy and politics is past. It is now time for action, and with you leading us, we have the power of the Force on our side. Therefore, let this be an official declaration of rebellion. Today, we all vow to change the galaxy, and one day, the galaxy will indeed be free.
They came! Look how many there are.
This, my friends, this is our rebellion.
Obi-Wan would guide the fledgling rebellion from the shadows. Bail Organa was not the first to create a small militia of his own. All across the galaxy, people were coming together to fight for what was right in the galaxy. It would be Mon Mothma and her rousing words of heroism, many years after the first declaration of rebellion, that would create a full-fledged rebel alliance. That's how these two speeches can coexist with one another, without contradicting themselves. Kenobi, not brave enough for politics, would leave the speeches and political battleground to the other rebel leaders. Kenobi's input would be in military tactics and strategies, proper places to hide, how to strike quickly without bringing the full might of the Empire on them, etc. Old Ben would also lead small missions of his own. Taking Ahsoka's place in Rebels means that Kenobi would soon stumble upon the abandoned Padawan Caleb Dume, now known as Kanan Jarrus, along with the Ghost Crew. As the kids grew older, Ahsoka had to have the difficult conversation with them that she was Auntie Ahsoka and not Mama Ahsoka. She respected Padme too much to allow herself to replace her. When the time was right, Luke would pout and ask out loud why he wasn't allowed to call her mom. Leia would delve into an argument saying, "But you act like our mom." The twins hold a deep affection for her. By all means, she had been caring for them since they had been born. She was, from a certain point of view, their mother. And because of that, they cared for her as one. Ahsoka would gently pull them both onto her lap, and pull a datapad out from her travel bag. The bag contained many images that Ahsoka had downloaded from R2's memory banks, just before leaving the Tantive IV on Naboo. And just a quick side note, the reason R2 isn't with Ahsoka during this is because he's Obi-Wan's new astromech droid. Images of battles, Senate meetings, and various occasions danced across the screen before Ahsoka settled on the image of Anakin and Padme on their wedding day. She explained to them that the twins' parents loved them very much, and she didn't want to replace their real mother. Leia understood, sort of. Luke didn't, and stubbornly insisted that Ahsoka was more their mom than the lady in the picture was. They began very basic force training when they were 5, though it was clear they were talented. Telekinesis came very easy to them, as they worked to grasp the basics. Ahsoka wished she had a way to teach them how to wield lightsabers, though she imagined kyber crystals would be incredibly hard to come by. All she had was Anakin's saber and not much else. She longed for the days when she was their age, and training sabers were plentiful. She made sure to teach them only in isolated areas, far from most civilizations, as to not alert the Sith to their presence. It seemed to be going well. Despite Ahsoka's best efforts to avoid any Imperial activity, the Empire was taking great strides in injecting themselves everywhere amongst the galaxy. When situations got tough, Ahsoka took risks, and would try to call in favors from allies she once had across the galaxy. She had a brief run-in with Lux Bonteri, who was operating as a smuggler to make ends meet. Briefly. Leia and Luke thought they were being sneaky when they watched how Ahsoka and Lux interacted. Just before the two old friends settled in for a potential makeout sesh, Luke interrupted the two of them with an incessant giggling, while Leia remarked that Ahsoka got a boyfriend. They were both promptly sent to their rooms. Another time, Ahsoka required medical supplies when the twins got sick. Dangerously, she called in a favor from her friends on Coruscant. She was happy to see Trace and Rafa alive and well, and not dead, especially since they were carrying medicine for the twins. However, Ahsoka was quick to see them off as well when Rafa offered to show the twins how to pickpocket. When the twins turned 6 years old, Ahsoka realized she needed cash. By now, Ahsoka is much older. She is in her mid-20s. Bail Organa had given her a hefty sum, though he must not have anticipated how expensive the Skywalker twins were. Raising children, maintaining a functioning ship, and avoiding the Empire was hard work. Deciding on a non-occupied farming planet, Ahsoka decided the planet of Rada was ideal to stay for a few months. Get in, get some money, and then get out. Simple. Or at least it should have been. Only after a week or so of working, the skies became blotted out with the distinct shape of an Imperial Star Destroyer. As soon as she caught wind, Ahsoka wanted to flee, though she quickly found out that stormtroopers had locked down the landing platforms and trapped them there. She ordered Luke and Leia to remain indoors and to not go outside under any circumstance. She made sure any Jedi paraphernalia was safely tucked away in case any Imperial inspections happened. She told young Luke and Leia to be brave. Even though they were scared, Ahsoka would figure out a way out of this mess. While Ahsoka quietly worked each day, Luke and Leia did as she asked, to an extent. As the days went by, Luke and Leia could feel the suffering of the townsfolk, and could also feel Ahsoka's anxiety as she tried to figure out what to do. To Luke, the answer was simple: kick the Empire's butt. Leia knew it would be a bit tougher than that. While Ahsoka was at work, Luke and Leia noticed rioting from the townspeople near their home. Sensing that it wasn't going to end well, Luke rushed to help them, and Leia, not wanting her brother to get himself killed, followed after him. This shows how Ahsoka's empathetic nature had been passed down to the twins. The stormtroopers were prepared to fire on the people should they not heed their warning and disperse. Luke called the identical soldiers ugly and proceeded to throw a trash bin in their path with the Force. Leia in the meantime used the Force more precisely, flipping their helmets around on their heads, blinding them. She then shouted for the riders to run away, which they did. Luke and Leia dashed after them while the stormtroopers were trying to make sense of the situation. Unbeknownst to the twins, a probe droid had been monitoring their every move, and as they ran, their identities as Force users were being sent back to the Empire. An Inquisitor was on his way. The town was put into lockdown. Ahsoka worriedly wanted to leave work and return home to the twins. Something told her that the lockdown had to do with them. She could sense it. Steeling herself, she prepared to find a way out of her facility and make sure her children were safe. The riders were quick to hide in their individual homes. Luke and Leia made a break for their house to hide and make sure they weren't caught. However, they were only 2 children against a platoon of Imperial soldiers. They were quickly cut off, trapped just outside their home, and held at stun point. Over their heads, an Inquisitor ship arrived, which for most signaled their imminent doom. For the twins, however, this unnamed Inquisitor adorned in Imperial armor that masked his identity. This signaled that they would be simply interrogated. Against Luke and Leia's cries of outrage, the two were taken into the Imperial base. Mere moments before Ahsoka successfully sneaked away from her farming facility, only to find her home completely abandoned. Realizing that her children must have gotten caught, and that they would try to use them to find her, she quickly came to terms with what she had to do next. Reaching into her stash of Imperial contraband, she produced Anakin's old lightsaber, the weapon of a Jedi Knight. Though Ahsoka was no Jedi, she let the whiff of nostalgia pass over her for a moment, before remembering what she had to do next. Placing it on her hip, she stepped back into the town to locate and rescue her children. Luke and Leia were cuffed to heavy metal chairs in the holding area of the base. The room outside their cell was spacious. The Imperial presence here was small, so their holding facility was also not very imposing. As they sat defiant but terrified, the Inquisitor walked back and forth menacingly, asking them questions concerning where they came from and who their master was. This mysterious Inquisitor then removes her mask, revealing a familiar face that the twins' mother would recognize. That being the face of Bariss, former Jedi, now an Inquisitor. And what happens after is a tale for another time. As always, it's a joy to share these what if tales with all of you. I look forward to continuing this story sometime in the distant future with my 2 good friends. More what if stories are well on their way. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter for any future updates. So thank you again for your support, and I'll see you on the next one.